it.
If we're gonna
Before
ramble,
we
if we're gonna look like it,
just
I'm going on to,
random
yeah, okay.
bits of
It is
human
Friday morning,
biology.
man. It is
Woo!
October. Oh crap. Okay, no, March 3rd. Why did I say October? Okay, March 4th,
I mean, I
2022.
know you're jet lagged, but you're not
I'm
that jet lagged.
uh the to be honest, on average, since we were so right before we went live, we started talking about averages. On
Mm-hmm.
average, I was getting between 2 to 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night. I did not, I wasn't getting, ever since last Saturday or Friday night through Saturday to maybe before last night, I was
Mm-hmm.
very badly deprived of sleep. Mostly time difference, but also late deadlines, timelines.
Yeah, your trek out to MWC was pretty rough. So
It started really rough. Saturday, my trip was like, seriously. My wife was like, you should have left a day early. It would have at least landed you at the time you
at the
wanted to
time you
be.
were supposed to get
You're
there.
supposed to be there because that's how late I was. But I didn't think of it that way. So, but it is fun to say that I got a
Mm-hmm.
chance to hang out with a whole bunch of people. I did miss not having you there, but I really hope next year we can definitely tag team it because this is a
I'm
show that
hoping.
you need a crew, you need buds, you need feet on the
You
ground.
know,
Let's just say that.
in my heart of hearts, you know what I would
Mhm.
love to do? I need to like make sure we had a sponsor in place that like could really cover it because it means a week of work that I'm just out of commission.
Mhm.
I'd really like to go as a producer. I'd really like to go as the person sort of running ops and not
Mhm.
have to worry about doing all the interviews and shooting all the B-roll and writing out loose scripts and putting myself in front of a camera to
Mhm.
shoot all the things that I've just done and then edit everything and then do all the social media and like the whole thing about
You
working a
you
trade
mean you mean
show.
you mean the job that we have, that all for one and everything
Well,
for one?
but like you were saying, like some of my favorite experiences working trade shows is when we've gone with a small crew. A crew
Oh,
of four
absolutely.
people is amazing, and it just takes me back to working on location film sets.
Hmm.
I was the sound guy. I was the location sound supervisor,
Hmm.
and I had people that would hold boom mics, and I had people that would cable up lavalier mics, and it was my job to just listen to everything. And
Hmm.
man, I'm really good at doing my job when it's one person's job.
It, it
So,
it is
you know, it,
absolutely, yeah.
it's not to say, like I don't want to be a host for a trade show, but man, it'd be nice to divide up labor and go with the expectation like my job here is to make this look as good as it can, and someone else can be in front of the camera and talking about something. That's not going to be my job. That would be nice.
That would be the situation I love to have somebody. I don't see, for me, I would love to. I'm a little bit different than where you are because I think you've had these type of responsibilities in the past. I would love to have the hosting position. I would
Hmm.
love to have to be able to just focus on that part,
Yeah.
but not focus on the fact I just hosted, and as I'm running from one place to the other, I got to make a quick little video. What do I do in here? Just push content out because you're constantly doing it, and you're always getting derailed. The conversations kind
Yeah.
of go a little bit here and there. Uh, I've always been a proponent, even when I was producing stuff for XDA and so on. I've always told the team, it's not a one person job. You do not send a person to, not even CES, IFA, Berlin, MWC. All of these shows require a crew. At least of two, three would be ideal. Like one running ops, one running
Yeah.
basically the production side, and one running the talent side. So I don't mind doing the camera and shooting by myself, but if somebody else is creating the content while I'm shooting and funneling that data, but then somebody else
Hmm.
organizing and making sure that I'm on point, that I'm not late to something, and I'm not mixing. Like I made a mistake, and because of the time difference in time zones, because before I left, I missed the entire event of Qualcomm on Monday
Yeah.
because I made it at 5:30 in at WC time, and I mistyped, and it was supposed to be 2:30. So as I was doing something else that I should have gotten out of, I missed an entire thing that I wanted to be
Yeah.
for Qualcomm.
The
So
logistics
yeah,
on that is a head trip yeah, at your best.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
under the best of circumstances, if everything goes perfect, it is still a brain cramping exercise of keeping a calendar straight.
I am, yeah,
And
mentally, I need a vacation.
yeah, for sure,
Mentally,
I would imagine, man. I
I
mean,
want to just shut off for the rest of the
it's
weekend or
fun
something.
travel, but man, it is not a vacation. This
No,
is so much more
no,
work than you can kind of bring up.
you
But
on,
I was
yeah,
happy to
go
see
ahead.
you boots on the ground, and it did seem like we're slowly getting back, from our conversations after CES. We're kind of figuring out, we're starting to kind of push those boundaries again of
It's
getting people into places to talk about things, and that human to human hands-on experience still has a significant value to this conversation.
it was a massive jump from what we saw at CES. We'll say that CES was definitely it had to happen, and I'm glad that it happened. Regardless of what it did and what it had, the reality of the matter is it kicks us off on the right foot. MWC felt a little bit closer to what it used to be. It wasn't 100%. That just for reference, MWC was not fully running. There were still a lot of spaces in the different halls that you go through that are just empty spaces. But the way they did it, which was interesting, they did it visually where they left the empty spaces away from the center walkway. So as you were
Ah,
walking,
yeah,
visually it looked full. But then if you go
yeah.
down and you go further out, you'll start seeing some open spaces. Which to me, don't get me wrong, I think the overall experience is still just maybe for a point of reference, since you've covered MWC before, you'll have a reference to this. It did not take me more than 3 minutes to get into the Fira every single day. 3 minutes. That's including
Yeah.
going through badging, going through scanning because of the MWC barcode. There was no
God,
printed
that does
badges.
sound nice.
3 minutes to get into the Fira, and it's like, I mean, obviously, it still takes you 10 minutes to go across it. But you know what I mean, though, right? Like I remember the lines and all of that, and it was like, wow.
Yeah.
Like that was actually good. I did not have that much hard time. So they handled it well. Overall, I think everything was. They felt normal. They were very very forceful. Not enforced. They enforced the mask wearing policy. They had literally people. That was the entire job, standing in hallways, and anytime somebody was walking by them without a mask, they run to them, put the mask on, put the mask on. It was like very straight, and it was like, okay,
Good.
good. At least they're making it cool because there's a few people, and
But again, seeing some of the data out of Vegas, it makes sense that you wouldn't want to mess around with a significant influx of people from around the world
absolutely,
coming
yeah.
to your city and possibly making things worse for the population who actually live there.
Absolutely. And
Did you see? Was there any? Because I would imagine that there was probably more pushback in Vegas from Americans about wearing masks well. I mean, did it seem like people were
there was a lot more.
compliant?
Okay, so CES was very much the similar thing, except CES didn't follow through in the center hall, right? Their enforcement was mostly at the door. So you passed through the front door at the the
And
main
then
halls.
you'd see people like,
Exactly.
yeah.
And you'd see people walking up and down, and there was nobody else. That's what I really appreciated. Where MWC was, no, they were all across, walking around, and that was literally their job. As I felt like that's what their job was, to make sure that
hall
people were
monitors.
well, because I feel like MWC was also it's more dense, right?
Yeah.
CES
Is spread out across Vegas. People
it
have
is.
events in hotel rooms.
But even with the halls, though, their halls are much wider and the
Yeah.
ceilings are much higher, so you had more space, kind of thing. I want to say, but with the Fira is it's a tunneled experience that you have to go between one area to another, and and everybody has to go through it. It's either you're on the top floor or the ground floor, unless you know that there are side doors. Most people don't take those, so you're pretty much condensed into going into tunnels. So it's a lot of concentration of people. So that's, I think, what their worry is about.
Yeah.
But the reality, honestly, with everything going on, I was able to. I mean, obviously, it feels like we've been there before. We know where to go. We know what to do. The events that we were there, they were done very nicely. Both Honor, I think Huawei did something. What's it called? Qualcomm did something. Oppo did something. Huawei did a few things, actually. They had a few other engagement, but I had a tour of the Huawei booth, which was actually very nice. They were massive, like the massiveness of what I would expect Huawei to be. They had literally the end of one of the halls, and it was like just massive technologies, massive booths, and a lot of new things that are being demoed. And I actually saw something that was very, like a few technology things, like connectivity they're working on very nicely. So it was. We'll talk more about it, but yeah, for sure,
For sure.
a whole bunch of things.
Well, I
going
mean,
on.
going from the actual logistics of how
Yeah,
the
yeah.
event went down, what were some of your favorite? I mean, because we still got the news. I mean, we know
Oh,
what was announced at
yeah.
MWC, but what were some of your favorite reveals? Some of your favorite announcements?
So some of the new things, obviously, is the Magic 4 was announced at the same time, so that was interesting to see Honor come back in full force. That was actually
Yeah.
a piece of tech that I've been waiting for. Believe it or not, I've been waiting for some time. Last year, they were supposed to
I've
come out
been
with the Magic
so
3.
thirsty for an Honor. I mean, I have not handled an Honor since the View 20, and I've just been, you
I
know what?
it's been a minute.
Nostalgia is starting to mess with my brain.
I ran into the Honor crew and Honor PR, and they were very welcoming and very happy to see me and so on. And so I was kind of, the only thing I think what happened is there's been some confusion as to my affiliation. And I think to a certain point, there was still some understanding that I was still representing XDA. But I kind of made sure to explain. I said, no, I know. Because what they were doing is they assumed I was with XDA, and then they would send hardware to, there was our buddy Adam Conway in Ireland. So whenever they had sent him hardware, they automatically canceled me out because they're like, well, XDA got a unit. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. I'm not. Anyways, I clarified that part, but I expressed again, same thing as you are, very much. I'm like very excited for what you guys are doing, but I'm also, it's out of my reach and we're not able to get hands on with it. So hopefully we'll see something with the Magic 4. They promised hopefully a unit in the future when they're ready. They didn't have units on the floor, so nobody went home with a unit to review, but they had
Right.
the show units. So that part was actually exciting. The design on the Magic 4 is definitely very nice. The charging capabilities, and I actually do want to talk a little bit later on about the charging. There's a charging speeds are going higher, and I saw some charging speeds that are at 240 watts.
Yep.
And it,
That's
like
too
if
fast. It's too fast.
it would have been done by the time. Okay, how long have we been on the show? We've been on the show for 11 minutes. We would have charged a 5,000 milliampere battery by now. That's how fast 100,
I mean, that
240.
Vivo. I mean, it's so funny because it's like I'm getting to experience some of this stuff fresh. So I did the Vivo IQ 9, 120 watt charging.
Yeah.
It went
So the Honor one, I
from-
think, is at 100 watts, 100 watt wireless and wired.
So
We're talking new tech.
at 13% or 12% low battery warning. It after 15 minutes on the charger, it was at 92%, and that's at 120 watts. So if you can force twice as much wattage out of your charger, I mean, again, it's getting to a point where it's almost concerning because I've been having a lot of conversations about throttling and battery health lately. This is another news topic that we'll probably cover later on in the show.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it almost makes sense to me to say, like, hey, if you have access to this, maybe don't use it all the time.
So there's
Because I really wish that if I had this in a phone, 240 watt charging, I wish I had a simple toggle in my notification shade to say, nah, for right now, slow charge it, and not have to worry about using a different charger if I want a slow charge or if I
Or
want a fast
even
charge.
better, when you plug it in, turn on a notification in front of you, say slow charge or fast charge. Simple. You just
Yeah.
put it in right when you plug it in. Say,
Again, there's already enough compute power in the charger to handle 240 watts, and I would imagine that a lot of these fast chargers are also pulling the same trick as the OnePlus chargers, where it's also certified power delivery. So you could say,
I love that function. Yeah.
yeah, so you can say, hey, backtrack this. Don't use the whatever fancy proprietary charge tech that you've got. I want you to fall back to 25 watt PD. And then from there, you could kind of slow things down, especially for people who like to plug in overnight. Because I've stopped doing that for most of my phones. As long as I've got about 40% left on the battery at night, I'll just let it sit in idle, and then I'll kind of top it off in the morning when I wake up. But we're talking about trying to get phones to last 3, maybe 4 years for the hardware. And I'm anxious about battery tech being able to keep up. That seems concerning to me. It's that fast.
As we're pushing the limitation of what we can do with tech. Now, Oppo's promise with their 150 or with the 140, I think. No, it was a 150 to 240. Was 80% battery life, 80% charge after 1,000 was it 1,000 cycles of charging? So they're trying to explain like how the tech their work. Also, Oppo and I think if I'm not mistaken, OnePlus at some point may have that as well. Overnight charging does not charge at that rate. Overnight charging is actually trickle charging to a 6 a.m. wake up. It's kind of like how my car charges. I plug it in overnight.
Oh,
it doesn't
yeah.
charge right away, and it just knows that by 6 a.m.
So-
I need to have a full battery. And
I've been surprised because that I mean I think we saw a flavor of that first on Sony. Again,
Yes,
anytime
yes,
we talk
Sony.
about battery, we need
Sony's
to
the king,
like give
yeah.
Sony the thumbs up and the props that they deserve because I don't think they get nearly enough credit.
Speaking of Sony,
because
Android 12.
oh no, not yet. What? I've been looking, man.
Okay,
It hasn't arrived yet for me.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
go ahead.
but I'm also swamped. I have way too many phones, and okay, quick tangent. I've got all these really cool phones on my desk. We're gonna talk about some Pocos. We're gonna talk about Redmi's, and like I wrapped up the iQOO and the Vivo. All I wanted to do is now that I finished resetting and getting my X70 Pro Plus set up again, all I want to do is take that phone out. I just want to go outside and shoot pretty photos of flowers. I mean, it just, it's so funny. Like it's such a tech reviewer first world problem to have that I have too many cool gadgets to play with when I just want to spend a little quality time with this one phone.
Not enough time of the day, not enough arms, and not enough wet. No, I know.
Yeah.
And then we have weird weather here. I'm getting rain where I am. I don't know if you're getting it.
Yes, because I was like, oh, you know what? This weekend I might be able to just go out and shoot. I mean, just do something fun. And now it's gonna be like cloudy and gray, and you're like, okay, that could still be fun, but
Mother Nature's like, yeah. Let me just taper those expectations for you.
Yesterday, we went out as a family. My daughter just got like a bunch of little awards at school for reading a ton of books. I'm so proud of her. She's so proud of herself. She's got like this little necklace with all of these little plastic, they look like little dog tags, but they're these little plastic reading awards. They gave her this fancy bookmark that has a light so that she can read in the dark. I mean, she's just so like, it's so cute. She's just so proud of herself. So we went out and grabbed some cheeseburgers just to celebrate. And it was like, I'm like documenting this moment. She's being adorable. Marie and I look like we haven't slept in weeks. We're just exhausted. But I brought out the Vivo. Like here's a nighttime photo of us by this fountain at this little outdoor mall, and it looks amazing. You're like, oh, this photo looks so good.
The phone is crazy.
It's so good.
Crazy.
So
seriously. Best of
I've
21.
completely digressed because we've got
back
to
Sony,
plenty of other
Sony and
things
battery
to talk
tech. Yeah,
about.
no. So you're going towards a Sony better battery life, Sony conversation, and we always kind of circle back with Sony, and I apologize for the tangent. Go.
Well, but I've always been surprised that more companies just haven't knocked it off. To me, that is a critical aspect of this conversation, because on the one hand, we keep talking up companies like, well, they're going to give us 4 years of software updates. And you're like, it's not going to matter if your battery's toast
especially
in 2 years.
It's a substantial amount to replace it officially, but I mean, or you could try to do it yourself and then compromise the IP rating.
Yeah, for sure.
No, Steve has a good point. Yeah, we're reaching at a dangerous point of charging tech. I feel bad for my phone's battery life every time I fast charge it on the quick charge 4 speeds. So there is a little bit of information that we probably want to cover. That was something that I learned with my Find X5 Pro. I know last week we talked about it. It is the Find X5 Pro.
Mm-hmm.
The Find X5 Pro charges max speed of 80 watts. That's the rated charging speed. In the US and in Japan, it can only go up to 65. So I'm almost tempted to say, and it's nothing to do with nothing to do with Oppo not wanting to release 240 to 80 or anything higher. It's a limitation of our power sources in the US at 110. Yeah, we're rated at 110, not 240. Not 220, so we don't actually get the higher rates, and to be able to get the full potential. The reason why I was kind of mentioning this is, prior to the issue that I saw on mine, because I reached out to Oppo and they're like, yes, US and Japan, that's something that they have no control over. The tech just is not going to perform at the highest speed that they advertise in there. And my first response to that was, please make sure you state that somewhere. Don't disregard it, because somebody's importing it and thinking, and then it could be misconstrued as like, why not? But it is actually quite honest. On the phone, when you're charging it, it says SuperVOOC 65. It doesn't say 80, and it's doing 65. So I'm wondering to say the charging speeds that we're seeing on some of the other devices that are going to be 240, 150.
I think we see similar limitations.
There are probably going to be some similar limitations, but I'm hoping companies are not going to just take the they're going to be like, well, max of 240 and not necessarily say
what we need to do is set up a YouTube short where we show people how to unplug their washer and dryer so they can plug in their phone and get the real fast charging,
so that it can get that. Like, you want to charge your phone at the fastest speed? Well, this is really easy. All you have to do, trust me with this, go into your garage, find your washer and dryer, unplug that baby, and plug in your charger, and you're going to be done.
So, this week on the channel, what I have for you is a guide where you can take your Tesla charger, and with this adapter dongle, you can finally top off your phone at 240 watts.
Faster you can top off your car. That's how we do it. Yeah.
I think we've got a good series of videos there.
I so wished I went for the 240 plug as opposed to the whole. I installed my charger entirely with wire connected into the actual switch box that we have in the house. So,
nice.
But it is something to keep in mind. Charging speed. I mean, even at 65. Don't get me wrong. 65 is crazy fast. 0 to 100% on the 5,000 milliampere in about 30 minutes is still super fast. And if you're somewhere in the middle, you could top it off in literally like 10, 15 minutes and you're done.
See, that's like the critical advantage. And I know a lot of people are saying like, oh, but if you're constantly cooking your battery like that, isn't that going to wear it out? But I find my behavior has changed where I am not anxious about leaving the house fully charged. Same. A couple years ago, like I would be anxious about leaving the house if I was even down to like 80%. And now it's, well, I know I'm going to be hitting the grocery store. Then I've got to go pick up Lex. Then I've got to drop off some packages. And then I'm going to be jetting right back home again. For that period of time, I'll quick charge, get my phone from like 30 to 60%.
And then let it just, exactly.
And I'm good. And I also have a charger in the car, but when I'm running navigation and the screen's on and the radios are cooking, I try not to charge my phone in hot California sunlight bouncing off my windshield.
Absolutely.
60% is going to be fine to get me through most of a day of use. So
yeah. The story behind what I'm trying to shoot for is speeds are coming. There are going to be new technologies being pushed out. Like I said, Honor's going for the 100 watt. Realme's going for higher. They talked about the Realme Neo 3 that's going to be running at 140. Oppo's going in with the 150 to 240 coming out later this year. Now, Oppo didn't mention what technology or what devices and who is going to be doing it. So what is it that's going to be supporting it? But they actually had physical devices on the show floor where they would show us the charge, and as soon as they stopped the clip that we're showing it, they put the phone down and they had a battery drainer setting up on the phone. That's the only way. They literally had like 3 to 4 units per station, and all I see from them is like they plug it in and they don't let you do it. They don't let you do it for more than a minute because it charges so fast. It starts a little bit and then it's like a speedometer. It's like woo. I'm like, what the. It's crazy.
Because I loved it on the OnePlus where they would give you the decimal point of the battery capacity.
So Huawei did that first, remember? So Huawei did that first.
Oh, that's right. No, it was Huawei. It was Huawei.
Yeah, it gives us the decimal first, and you're like looking at it. But
I'm charging so fast. I need a more accurate speedometer.
But now with these things, dude, the speed is on the left side of the decimal, not just on the right. It starts off with the going 10%, 20, and then it's like 6, 7. And you're like crap. So the 240, literally, they do 60 seconds and they unplug because it jumps percentages in that amount of time. But anyways, that was
there's some kind of joke in there about like maybe at the next trade show, people should walk around with Oppo phones, charging up other people's phones on the show floor, and then they could plug in and show like, oh, now I'm already topped off again from having charged your phone.
I will say this, I did use my Oppo phone to assist a few iPhones during this trip. I'll say that.
I mean, they need the help, especially if it's an iPhone 12. Oof. Big oof.
No, it is. It's so much fun. I was like, you're out? Hold on a second. Here's just put it on.
Just here, go ahead.
Just let it put it right there, baby. Yeah.
See, I'm way more selfish. I'm like, I'm not going to put extra wear and tear on my battery just because you couldn't plan ahead. It just works.
But the look on their face is like, wait, hold on, you can share power? I'm like, yeah, that's how we do it, man. We like to play. Oppo was amazing. Xiaomi had some really cool things. I got a chance to see OnePlus. I saw they had a nice wall on the back behind their portion of the booth at the Oppo side, and they showed the history of OnePlus devices. Right, with the exception of the
Nice.
Cyanogen phone, which I'm assuming they don't consider that as part of the history because they didn't start. They started with the OnePlus Two. But it's considered. Well, I don't. I didn't understand why they would go two, three, four, two, three, five, six, seven, 8, 9, and 10.
Right. That's
But
funny
the one
though.
was not there, and the only reason I can think of is because it officially wasn't running Color OS or I think Hydrogen OS at the time. That was the only one that it was only CM, right? Hydrogen came on OnePlus 2 as an option to CM, and then
For
at
sure.
the end they stopped CM and they continued only on Hydrogen. Everybody had to go to Hydrogen. So long story, still, it was nice to see. They had a couple of devices there that were running, and it was running Oxygen OS, by the way. It was OnePlus 10 Pro with Oxygen OS, not OnePlus 10 Pro with Color OS. But yeah, so hopefully that means we're going to see something.
I
It's
still
coming.
think it's really funny because OnePlus went out of their way to put out these press releases. Don't worry. You know what? We're not going to abandon Oxygen OS. All of you OnePlus nerds, you can calm down now. We're not going to betray you with this. The whole point of Oxygen wasn't that it was just a fancy skin. And techies are so bad at this. We're so bad at emotionally locking into some idea and not really understanding what else is going on. I kind of had my awakening with EMUI. People would complain like, I don't like the way that the icons look in the notification shade. And you're like, okay, but what Huawei is doing is all of this crazy under the hood work for garbage collection and clearing out your cache and your storage and speeding up the way that it generates thumbnails, and your gallery is just so much faster when you're going through high resolution images and high resolution video. Yeah, but the skin is awful. Okay, but I thought we were techies. I thought we cared about like
Under the
performance
hood
and
stuff. Yeah,
improving
exactly.
capabilities
The true
and
experience of how things
and
go.
I can put a launcher and address some of this issue on there by just avoiding the skin or customizing it, because there were some okay custom skins that you could put on your EMUI launcher.
Yeah, yeah.
Like themes. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word themes. And so now it's
I
like
know.
you've got like this almost vaguely racist, like, oh, OnePlus is such Chinese garbage going on in the comments on my videos, but like the underlying code base is what is staying the same. It's the same general operating system chunk as FunTouch and as Color OS, and all that they're doing is just going back to kind of the look of the icons back on the launcher, and that's like appeasing people. And you're like, this that's not a techie conversation. That's like a fashion purse conversation.
Yeah, how do you want your launcher to look like today? Which, again, to me, it's not. But like you said yourself, I mean, they're missing the benefits of what we're getting with the new Oxygen OS. The specific Oxygen OS features are still staying in there. They're just getting changed a little in the sense of how things maybe load up a little bit faster. It's more. I feel like in the long run, it's going to benefit us from consistent updates and performance improvements and new features.
That's my argument is watching people cry and claim betrayal that it would have also been Color OS, as if that's again like that
thing.
Like that was a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because again, especially a company like Oppo, OnePlus, where they've got to do business in a variety of regions, it's not the same thing that it used to be way back in the day on Chinese phones, where all of your data was stored locally on Chinese servers. Now, because of European and North American regulations,
the European
all of this has
regulations, for
changed.
sure. Yep.
Yeah. So I really don't care. Oxygen OS did not define my life in any way. It was a launcher and a skin and a custom background Android handling under the hood kind of thing. And if it's the same as Color OS, we could just call it Color OS. Basically, we've got Color OS with a different launcher.
Well,
and that's about as deep as this tech conversation.
What I would
is
probably
going.
say is that's how it's going to be now. Let's wait till the end of the year when the unified OS is going to come out. Because so the roadmap for what we have right now.
I love
is
it.
they're
It's going to be
independent.
the exact same. It's going to be a unified OS, and they're just going to, in the settings, they're just going to say Oxygen OS 13.
Exactly. That's all, and I think that's how.
And that's all it's going to take for, yeah.
Well, because I mean, the reality in the U.S. we don't have Oppo, right? So whoever's having a hard time about this in the U.S. has no point of
They
reference.
don't know what they're angry about.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like being angry for the sake of being angry over something that is just not in there. The reality is, ever since Android 11, OnePlus has been changing their launcher. They did a massive change. They went through the backlash back then. And then Oxygen OS 12 is pretty much a similar conversation, except that now we have a little bit more hands-on with Oppo. When they go into the unified OS, and it literally all it does, and at that point just say this is Oxygen OS because this is a OnePlus device, as opposed to a Color OS as being on an Oppo. It's literally. My hope is that people will just literally go beyond that and start appreciating the hardware and the tech that we're getting. The OnePlus 10 Pro, realistically, at some point or another, is going to release in the international market, European, and in the US market. Obviously, the units are in existence. We saw it. I saw it on the show floor. It exists.
I can confirm it does
I
exist.
can confirm it is not a rumor. OnePlus 10 Pro, Oxygen OS 12.
You heard it here, folks.
It's there. It exists. Now just get pumped and forget about the whole No, sorry. Let's just appreciate the fact that it will come out, and my hope is that obviously people will be happy. Obviously, all we've been seeing is Color OS versions of it, and I'm pretty sure everybody that bought the Color OS will probably flash it over to Oxygen OS once it comes out. But the story is, it's coming. It's good. The demo was really nice. That having all of those devices in one spot, because believe it or not, I actually don't have all of those devices. The earliest one I have is the OnePlus 2. It's sitting on my wall. I don't have a OnePlus 1.
Well, my OnePluses went back to Pocket now, so I started the OnePlus 6. I really wish I had the OP5.
I have, I think I have a 5 with the Jelly, and I have the 6, the 7, and then of course the 8. I have one is with my mom. I kept the 8 Pro, and then of course the 9s.
I might need to also, just for the museum, I shouldn't keep doing this. Like, I'm collecting old phones and they're just in my
You're
bookshelf.
not the only one. I had a couple of my buddies were like, literally, he had a spreadsheet of phones.
I'm not keeping a spreadsheet.
He had spreadsheets, and it was red box spreadsheet of the phones he still is looking for, and some of them are like older generations. And I didn't realize that there was an S5 Mini. Did you know that there was an S5 Mini? I've never seen it. Like,
those minis were obnoxious because like they'd call it an S5.
US?
Yeah. They were often sent to low cost carriers because they would drop down to a lower tier SoC.
Maybe, yeah. So he had a list of the minis that he's still looking for. There was a few OnePlus devices in there. It was like,
got to catch them all.
Absolutely. So he's very dedicated to that experience. So yeah, when you say you're missing a piece of hardware and you're looking for it, obviously it is going to be interesting to see how to get things, if they're especially getting them in good shape.
I kind of want to go back because I have my Axon, and I still think it was one of the most exciting three-way races. Axon 7, sorry.
7. Yeah. So I do have one. I have one of those.
Axon,
as well.
Axon 7 Pro, OnePlus 3T, and Honor 8. And $400, those three phones were juggernauts. That was like one of the most exciting transitionary mid-rangers. Are legit, they're serious, they're cool.
Yep.
You've got all of the performance, you're nearly matching all of like the camera capabilities, and those like the OnePlus 3T had one of the better headphone jacks. The Axon 7 had one of the best headphone jacks. I mean, it was just this brutal trio, and I don't think we've seen quite the same since, where you could say like, this is a phone that costs less than replacing the back glass on your iPhone, and it's just ridiculously powerful, incredible performance, and toe to toe against any oncomer. So I've got my Honor 8, I've got my Axon 7. I might need to pick up a 3T and then put them in like a case, like
just basically like the trio,
or like a really fancy shadow box, like picture frame, and just be like, this was the year where did we go wrong?
Funny enough, for everybody in the chat, that was also the year that Juan and I met for the first time in person.
Yeah,
At the
you
Honor
were
8.
there. You were
I
sitting
was,
at the table when I spilled candle wax all over my Honor 8 and messed up the earpiece speaker on it.
so yeah, that's how we go back. Fun memories and little, little bit of fibs and things. But like seriously though, a lot of tech kind of right now is pushing different boundaries. Like every company is trying to go different ways. I will say though, out of everything that was announced, I was very happy to see Realme step up to the plate. Realme's pushing the limits of what they were known for and what they do, and their main goal with this year was to push out basically the Realme. This is the GT2 Pro. So I've had this phone for a few weeks. And I know it sounds like a cheesy line everybody says. I've had this for the last few. Here's my review. It surprises me in every single way I've ever used Realme devices. I want to say I mentioned this to you. I'm not sure if I did, but it feels like an Oppo Find X3 Pro married a OnePlus 9 Pro, and they had a baby in 2022. So obviously the SoC would be new, and then you get the Realme GT2 Pro. It's literally like it touches on so many flavors that I really like. With great cameras, low light photography, fast charging and so on. Great cameras. We have the microscope camera that we got on the FX3 Pro.
Yeah.
We have, good LTPO technology with level 2 with 120. But it also shoots in 8K, which is different than what we see from other BBK sub brands. Like Oppo, for some reason, doesn't do 8K, right? Realme
so much.
For some, I've asked, and every time I think I ask the question, it's like, why don't we have 8K on the back and why don't we have 4K on the front? Their solution or their response has been mostly about a balanced experience, that they feel like that's the right balance. Mm-hmm. And I realize, obviously, for me, and I'm sure you would agree, that the best performance is always going to be on the back sensor. So if you really want that performance power, 4K 60 on the back is absolutely great. So that's why, that's all I shoot for here, is always on the back sensor. So
Right.
It was nice to see that some OnePlus influences in here. Like, I call that OnePlus because OnePlus does allow us to shoot in 8K, where Oppo doesn't, and now Realme is allowing us to do that on their high end. So it was exciting.
It is funny though, because like I just had to double check. Like I could have sworn that Vivo did 8K too, and they do.
I think yeah.
Out of all the BBK brands, Oppo is the one that's
Holds
more
back on
conservative. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Their focus is more about giving you the best experience at the 4K 60, and I'm glad that we have 4K 60 on the back, which with the dual sensors that we have on the Find X5 Pro, and also the same thing here, the dual 50s. They did the dual 50s on them as well, so they're trying to shoot for a better performance of mode. One thing I will say, 8K is at 24, not at 30, which is, again, not that I use it all the time, but if you're interested in shooting in that. And I noticed also that other manufacturers are dropping the 8K 30. They're all trying to, because the Snapdragon is actually rated to 8K 24, not 8K 30. But we've always had that whole push. But anyways, I'm rambling. I apologize. The long story short is this: great phone, great, and at the launch buy, they were like selling it for 750 euros.
Yeah.
For a brand new 8 Gen 1, top of the line, spec'd out Realme, and that's going to be kicking it pretty hard. Like,
and
it's
again,
international.
right in that territory, where I feel like the Vivo, the iQOO is such a heavy hitter, and I'm really excited for the Note 22 from Samsung, but the S22 and S22 Plus don't look like great buys, especially internationally when you're facing BBK brands, unless you tell me you're a heavy DeX user. The hardware on these other phones.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the reality is, and kind of I'll touch base a little bit on that as well. I had some interesting experiences with my S22 Ultra. It's a very different. It's a different marketplace. So when you go to CES here, right? You have a very few number of things. You'll have Samsung with their massive booth, right? Their presence at CES, even though they may not announce anything, they had the same level of presence as Huawei had at the MWC. Right. Because when you go to the Samsung booth at MWC, which is a little bit different this year, everything was behind closed doors. They didn't have any demo areas in the front. You had to register, get some time, and then you can go behind their area, and you had more of a private experience inside, which was a little bit different. But what I'm trying to say is, in the US, you don't have a lot of competition as much, right? Or at least even in CES as far as presence, you have booths for all the companies, but Samsung still shows a massive dominance. You go to MWC and then you start seeing like, no, they're not the only player, and they're not only that, they may not even be in that. Most people are levitating or gravitating to other people. Xiaomi had all of their case here. The Redmis are in there. Their Xiaomis were in there. Even the Pocos, which I actually, we're going to talk about. Both of us got a chance to play with the brand new M4 and X4 from Xiaomi, and some from Poco. Sorry, from Poco. Poco wants to be specifically understood. It is a separate. But is a subsidiary, separately designed. It was at the Xiaomi booth.
Sure.
But in the past, I got, I think, an email back when I posted my video and I put it Xiaomi Poco, and then they're like, take out the Xiaomi out. There's Poco. Don't, Redmi doesn't have a problem.
Sure.
Yeah, it is.
It doesn't bother me that much, and we all know.
Yeah,
we all know it's a Xiaomi.
It is. The part's been. But it was exciting to get a chance to see there. Just for reference, there is a gold color of the X4 that is phenomenal, like phenomenal. The color, it's just, oh my god! And you know how like the X4, it has all that light effect, right? The way it does it, where it reflects the lights, it makes it look like there's like lights going up. Imagine that on a gold color, like holding it in your hand. There, it just feels so much nicer.
I really wanted that.
I saw that. I was like,
yellow. Where is my X4? It's around here somewhere.
It is one of the, it is, so it is, again, the X4 for me, it's a great segue to talk about them. We both got a chance to play with them. Both mid-rangers, basically budget-friendly devices from Poco, as you can imagine, but also still holding true to the bang for the buck experience that you expect.
But a market shift from the X3, and I knew I was going to get a bunch of comments from people about the X3 SoC being more powerful than the X4. But let's see if I can get the focus.
Oh, there we are, my friend. Hold on. Let's put you up there. And why is it not? Oh, come on. How do we do this? How do we get it so that okay, so let me
We're doing it live. And there you go. It's real pretty. And then in more direct light than my soft panels, these become like razor sharp. Oh, kind of like that. They become razor sharp little laser lines. It feels a lot like an Honor 8, and I love the look.
Reminded me a lot of the View 20. Remember how the View 20 had
the chevron shape? Yeah.
I had a lot of reminiscence of that, and so the when I saw the yellow one in person, I was like, oh my god, this is the one
It's so pretty.
Don't get me wrong. UI, everything on the internal processors and everything like that is sexy as heck, but there is something to be said when companies spend time to provide you a nice design, an aesthetical design that makes you not want to put a case, or if you do, put a case that is see-through to actually enjoy the device. Because like 90% of the time when you're not using your phone, I understand that we don't get a chance to, we don't do that a lot. But having the ability that when you do put your phone on the table, to enjoy what you're looking at. Right, because that's when you experience the backside.
I always appreciate because like again on these mid-ranger phones, it's a way more complete experience. Headphone jack, memory card expansion, IR blaster, charger, 33-watt charger, and a case in the box. Yep. I kind of wish they had gone with a hard plastic shell case for exactly what you're talking about. That the slight, like if I
it changes
the slight texture. Changes the look of the back of the phone, and it's okay on the just regular glossy M4. It does kind of break up the light on the X4, and I wish they hadn't done that because the phone is so flashy. It takes me back to the Honor 8 is the phone I was asked about the most while I was using it, and often in the United States it was, oh my gosh, what case do you have on your iPhone? That looks so cool. But people cared, like they were excited about the look of that phone, and I feel like internationally, when we get these kind of these kinds of designs on the backs of our phones, people would be excited about that too.
Yeah.
I did want to kind of circle back because
Sure.
just real quick, off the top of your head, Michael Corcoran asks, what smartphone has surprised you the most in your career, good or bad? Don't think about it, just react. What do you think?
Oh crap! Crap! Surprise me! Surprise me! I don't know. I can't put a. I don't even have a phone that jumps into my head right now. Like I'm thinking surprised. Okay, if I have to say, it would be X70 Pro Plus. Because
Okay.
that's the only one that
I mean, recently, I would definitely fit that. Of recent memory, the X70 has completely changed up my idea.
Because to be honest, knowing, so I knew the phone performed well, right? It's one thing to know that it's a bad camera or a good system. Overall, when I got the phone from you, Juan, I had a certain expectation, thinking, okay, look, this is going to be cool, but I don't think it's going to do as good as my Find X3 Pro. I don't think it's going to do better than my P50 Pro or other, like, you know what I mean? Like expectation sizes,
Yeah.
I'm like trying to hit it and this is where I'm predicting it. The surprise factor is that it just so much more, way
Right.
more, and more consistent, more focused. Low light performance was way better. Audio performance was much better. It's like I felt like they took parts from a lot of other companies' best features, like the microphone system that we had on the Honor, not Honor, on Huawei phones. Absolutely fantastic. But it's exactly like that. The camera system that I've seen with other BBK sub brands like OnePlus and Oppo have always been surprising. Like I've always been happy with Oppo. OnePlus has been getting better every year with their performance. This just surpassed Oppo's photography for me, and I felt like wow. And why? And in my mind, I'm thinking, it's like, why is Oppo not having dinner with Vivo's team? It's like, buddy, Ken, I'd like to maybe we can
I'd
work
like
on
to
a
speak
special-
to your BBK manager and see if we can. I'll be a
something
Karen
about that
this.
camera app and so on. But yeah, the
I don't think
S7 Pro
anyone's
Plus-
going to be surprised by my answer that before this phone, I was a diehard Note guy. And then the LG
I would have
V10
thought I was
came
going
around.
to say, yeah. I thought you were going to say LG for sure. Yeah.
And that's the phone that, again, whether or not I think I was really the most surprised. It's the phone that I think challenged most of my Samsung expectations, and it definitely sort of redirected years of my smartphone and reviewing career. So I would say that one probably had the most influence on the kind of smartphone user I am today.
The one that I would say, if there's a phone that ever lived up to not only lived up to the expectations I had of it, but lasted the longest with me, actually was the V60, because I wasn't expecting what LG was going to put out that 1 year. And
My fallback phone, I'm still putting my SIM card back in the V60, and it still feels like a no compromises mobile computing experience.
But it
over
was
what
for
we
me
have
more
today.
about also because I think it was also LG's shift. They pivoted away from the boombox. They pivoted away and they gave us stereo speakers. They gave us a large battery. They gave us a large display. You know what I mean? Like it was alignment with all of the different pieces that I felt like for some time, not only that they were experimenting, but they were trying to feature different things. So that with the V60 for me, it hit all the points, and it still does all of that to this day. This is the weird part about it. But from a surprising point, it was, and I feel like it was probably because I've never used a Vivo. That's really what it is.
And my expectations of Vivo were more like Realme. Realme is now moving up the food chain and making nicer phones, but for some reason in my head, Vivo and iQOO were like, and I don't know why I had this expectation, but they in my brain were much lower on the totem pole. I do want to get back. We were just starting to chat Xiaomi X4.
Yes.
Someone asked on my Monday morning podcast, and I'd only done a little bit of testing, and so I didn't really delve too much deeper into this. I really didn't have it ready for the video at embargo launch day. Surprisingly good headphone performance.
It was one of the things that yeah.
I know they always advertise, well, this is high res. I mean, they've even put high res on like lower end phones and stuff, but
like
the amp
24
is
and
solid.
96 kilohertz. They actually, for me, they were when I asked, they
It can
specified it.
play back those FLAC files because it's going through the Android audio processing codec. You slam into a brick wall at CD quality, but surprisingly good signal to noise ratio. So if you're listening up to CD quality, like that's almost all of Apple Music's high res catalog is CD, not greater than CD quality, just
60,
it's incredible.
44 basically, yeah.
In the year 2021, I mean 2022, excuse me, we're only just now crawling back to the quality of CDs.
Well,
So-
because it's wireless. Well, no, you're talking about wired. So
No, I'm talking about the headphone jack here. So I mean, like my experiences on previous Pocos were more like, like M4s, and you get that tiny weedy little amp, and they sound okay. They sound okay-ish on consumer earbuds, little bullets, sporty earbuds, things like that. The amp is just a little bit beefier. The quality is just a little bit nicer. And for me, that noise floor is kind of an important step up, because as you turn up the volume on a weaker amp, you're lifting the noise floor along with it. So your signal to noise ratio kind of goes down the toilet. This was a surprising performer. It's almost in the territory of like LG Velvet. Velvet didn't have quad DAC.
No, they,
But Velvet could at least go to proper 24-bit FLAC playback. Like you got the full frequency response of 24-bit. Was it 24-bit 96 kilohertz or 24-bit 192? I don't remember.
I think it's
anyway.
96. Yeah, 2496. I don't think.
So while there's support to play 24-bit FLAC files on the Poco, it cuts you off at CD, but that's still better than most out there. So it was just a happy little surprise. Like the speakers are pretty good. I mean, they're not the best speakers I've ever heard, but they're, again, price performance, they're very good. And then the headphone jack. This is something that could help replace a DAP if someone were looking at a standalone MP3 player. You wouldn't need to. It's not powerful enough to really drive thirsty professional cans, but you'd be talking about headphones that almost cost as much as the phone does. So your concerns need to be kept in perspective there. Very good. I was very pleasantly surprised.
And the X4 also has I mean, when you're talking about using it for media consumption or listening to audio, it does have the faster charging as well. That one has the 67-watt charger, not the 33-watt charger. So the combination between the two, I were at least, so they were both launched at the same time, both targeting a slightly different audience. This is a second iteration of the M4, if you guys probably have seen this in the past or not. But there was an M4 Pro that was a 5G model that came out late last year or somewhere there in last year's timeline. And this one is actually the 4G LTE model of it, running a G96, MediaTek G96. Dimensity, no, that's not a Dimensity, it's a MediaTek, yeah. And you notice that the bumps, the camera module is on the X4 obviously is a little bit different. As you see there, they're more cross, and you can't see it in Juan's picture, but they're actually more. It's the module is covering all around from on the back, so it's level.
So I really like, because the camera module is now full width of the back of the phone. I also like that the sides are flatter.
Yep.
So they have a little bit more of a Sony flat side thing going on. They're a little easier to hold. I mean, the new design language on Poco is really sharp, and I mean that literally and figuratively.
It made me.
It's a good look.
At first glance, I honestly I thought it was a Mi 11 Ultra's variant or something when I first looked at, because it's the whole I mean, like you have the whole
it's the whole window
but it's great for leveled, you know what I mean. It takes away from the phone wobbles on one side or whatever.
I know, I hate that so much.
The aesthetic, the price point, the design, it's very, like, I mean, we are at the point now where a 6 series processor from Qualcomm can perform quite well and hit us. So 5G, 120 hertz refresh rate, stereo speakers. I mean, no 1080p, no 4K, but still 1080p resolution, video on both the front and the back.
I got to say, from the Poco perspective, and I can appreciate some of the concerns people have.
Yeah.
This newer gen of Pocos, I think they're weaker video performers. Because you used to have 1080-60 on a lot of these phones, and now on this X4, even on the X4, you're capped at 1080-30. And it is a better phone for stills photography than older Pocos.
Absolutely.
But it's not as good for video.
For video, I would say it's acceptable, and I almost want to felt like I didn't really. like I did some nighttime photography on both, and I did some video, and you could definitely see the difference between the two. That they didn't really focus heavily. For media consumption, these devices absolutely, hands down, both perform very well.
Yeah, very good.
Gaming is going to be better on the X4, as you can imagine, better processor, but also the fact that it goes to 120, and the camera performance is a little bit like still photography, long exposures with the 108 on the X4, definitely very nice. I was happy to see
Yeah.
that mode there. But like, and this isn't the first set of phones that I feel like that when they had the 695, they're keeping it at 1080 30. I don't know why.
I think it's a combination of the lower power SoCs trying to clear data off of this larger camera sensor, because that is one of the exciting things where
Yeah.
Poco across the board is now moving up to what is a 1/1.52 inch camera sensor. That's ballpark iPhone Pro territory for the size of that camera sensor.
And they're trying, yeah.
But I think what part of the issue is trying to clear data off of a larger camera sensor, manipulate that image data is probably just a little bit more resource intensive. And while these phones probably could shoot higher quality 4K video, or because I think the 690 can, maybe it can't. Maybe the only times I've shot 4K on cheaper phones have been like 710s or 730s. I can't remember. Anyway,
The 7 series for sure can shoot 4K. We know that because
I don't know
the
about
whole,
the Snapdragon 690 though. I don't know if it really does properly support 4K. I would imagine it does, but I think the performance hit is likely one of stability at this point. So look at all of the nerds that whinged out like, oh, a Pixel 5a can only shoot 15 minutes of 4K 60 before it overheats. This phone's unusable. You don't want to do that to a Poco.
Yeah, I remember those conversations. Oh my God, the debacle of the 4K 60 on the it is just crazy. Sorry, 695 4K. I'm just trying to see if I can get something on it while we're talking.
I mean, even if you can just pull up Qualcomm spec sheet, their ISP should tell you if
that's exactly where I'm going.
does,
The reason
but-
why I typed it in. So impressive gaming capture. Qualcomm.
So while you're looking that up, Michael Pepper Tech has asked, if I were to get my first Poco phone, which would you suggest? And the Poco Trio is shifting a little bit from last year to this year. The M series is their sort of bread and butter daily driver, most accessible kind of performer. The X series last year was a bit more of a flagship killer. It had that Snapdragon 860, not the 865, but the 860, which was like a better binned version of the 855. That is screamer hardware still. It's a really great phone. The F series is their now like high performance variant. The F3 is rocking the Snapdragon 870. The X4 is an interesting transition point. So the X3 was a bit more of a flagship killer performer. The X4, and I think Poco and Xiaomi are doing the correct job of advertising it. It's the more well-rounded phone. It actually takes a step down in compute power from the X3, but it gets a better screen, it gets faster charging, the stock storage options start you out higher, the headphone jack is really good. It's just they call it the all-around ace. So if you want the all-around average consumer nice daily driver phone, I'd say X. If you want to see Poco at their most bestest performance, I'd say F. The F3 is still a screamer today. I mean, that phone is just so good price performance. It's shocking. It's just delightful.
So Qualcomm's site doesn't specifically say what's the highest resolution you can shoot at, but it tells us that it's maximum of 30 frames per second on all of their configuration. It's using the Spectra 346T image signal processor, which is
They really
12 megapixel.
say maximum frame rate, not just resolution.
Yeah. Well, hold on. Let me share what I'm looking at real quick. So this is straight off of Qualcomm's site. Where is share? Wow. Now we can share slides, extra camera, video. Wow. We can,
We got some updates while you were out in Spain.
Yeah. I was like, what? Okay, hold on. I'm trying to share. Okay, here, share screen. Like they moved it on me. So okay. So as Juan's showing us the beauty right there, as the F3 Poco
That's the F3.
is, and of course this is just too small of a font. This is not going to be fun. Okay, let's see. Can we make it bigger?
It's okay. I don't think we need to.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's squinting at the screen saying, let's read this, right? Okay, what did I just do?
Video playback. I can see there was camera.
Yeah, yeah.
Display.
No, it's. I think I zoomed in too much. Yeah, I was doing the two, but short answer is right there. This is the image under the camera performance. The 108 is the highest resolution camera that it will support, so the X4 is definitely pushing that limit. Multiple image sense, so 720p on the slow motion and HVAC, but yeah, triple on it, 30 frames per second on the 13, on the 16, on the 32. It's maximum of 30, but it doesn't talk about the video resolution. Display can go up to 120 hertz, which is what we have.
Sure.
But yeah, interesting. Like I'll have to,
I think it's
every time I've seen it, it's always been 1080. I've never seen it with a 4K capability before. So,
right, but I do
trying
think
to
it's a combination now of these more sort of mid-ranger SoCs contending with much bigger camera sensors, and also just clearing data off a camera sensor is tricky all on its own. So if there's anything in there that might cause a phone to run less stable or to overheat faster, something tells me like the Poco label especially. But we saw something similar on the Redmis. The Redmis are in the same boat with these newer camera sensors on the Note 11s. I imagine it's balancing all of those compromises to get better photos. You're not going to be able to improve video until we see a new gen of SoC.
Yeah.
In the mid-range that can support that.
Maybe an update to the 6 series, but definitely on the 7 series, which I'm still... So we haven't heard... I mean, I know it's still early in the year, but, you know, we all know about the 8 Gen 1 and everything new with Qualcomm.
We need 6 Gen and 7 Gen.
Yeah, I want to hear what the 6 Gen and 7 Gen are doing, because the reality... And they don't do this weirdly. So they start off the year with the big numbers, and of course later we start hearing about the 2nd gen. But the 7 gen and the 7 series and whatever the new version is, and the 6 series, those are the ones that are going to be the really exciting processors, and what that marriage and what the recipe is going to be put into those that gives us that bang for the buck experience, because literally that mid-rangers are going to be powered by processors like these. The Dimensity processor. So there was another announcement while we were out. Well, I was out.
The Dimensity 8000.
Dimensity 8000 is coming out. So that's going to be really exciting to see mid-range, not mid-range, but like a year or two's older generation compatible kind of experience, which still to this day.
No. I'm going to fight you on that right now.
Please.
We're going to have words, TK, fisticuffs verbally. No, so this is what we've been talking about Samsung throttling a lot over the last day.
Yes, we're going to talk about that.
We go back to the Snapdragon 865. And the Snapdragon 865 seems to be still one of the best consistent performers. Like an 888 and an 8 Gen 1 can absolutely beat an 865 in a short sprint. But the 865 is going to complete the task within a 10% margin of delay, and then also finish the task way cooler and probably having used less battery. It is just a beautiful piece of SoC. So the Dimensity 8000, taking a page out of this 870 playbook, instead of just a better bin, they're taking the same core configuration. There is no big, thirsty, power-hungry X1 core. It's the same A78s and A55s. Is it the A55?
It's equivalent to what we had. Yeah,
but it's getting a die shrink. That's what's critical. So we're going from a 7 nanometer process to a 5 nanometer process, which means we should see similar performance of the 865 in this core configuration, with a reasonable trend towards better power efficiency by shrinking all of those components. And then all of the complementary SoC bits are coming from the Dimensity 9000. So the camera capabilities, the decoder, it's getting AV1 decoding.
I was surprised. Yeah, I was
mid-range.
very happy to see that they're still focusing on AV1. Even though they're not one of the few. They're the only manufacturer that's still putting that as a part of their
announced it, and they got headlines. Qualcomm is eventually going to support AV1 in a year or two, and MediaTek is going to be on track to do that this year on 2 tiers of SoC. And so while I'm excited for Dimensity 9000, I am so critically interested in Dimensity 8000, because what I've been saying is like 865 level performance is still silly, ridiculous overkill for even hardcore techies.
Yep.
for what you do on a phone. And if you can give me 865 tier power and consistency, I mean performance and consistency, but you can drop the power usage of that level of performance, that to me is a dream SoC. I am so anxious to see who might pick up Dimensity 8000. I want to see that in a Vivo. I want to see that in a future Oppo. I'd love to see it in a OnePlus.
Motorola could be also on that, or
A
even
Moto
OnePlus with
would
the
be
Nord.
would be baller there, because Moto, I don't think they handled the thermals on the 8 Gen 1 very well. If they're letting their phones get up to 60 degrees Celsius, I feel they need something a little bit more power efficient.
Speaking of which, the Realme GT2 Pro max temperature I've been getting with running it full all over, 41, 40 to 41,
So
and doesn't go
I
up.
I got the iQOO up to almost 50 on the setup and the first sort of the intro on Genshin.
Okay.
That phone got real hot
I did
was
actually
trying
end up
to
staying
get
away
through
from
Genshin.
Genshin on this one, mostly because
But
I typically I can imagine. Yeah, Genshin will make any phone warm though. This is the weird part
But
about it.
anything else, and I feel like there probably is a performance limiter somewhere in Vivo's software stack, but anything else, I mean, I was in the 40s on my batch photo processing test. Like
Okay.
that's a test that ran Samsung screaming hot on the S21, and it was cool as a cucumber. I mean, not cool as a cucumber. 40 degrees is still a significant temperature, but it was not anxiously warm running it on a pretty hard test.
No, for sure. I think I'm happy to see that they're doing better. They're doing there's better effort to to manage the temperatures out of the 8 Gen 1. But for me, it was more about so the Find X5 Pro runs also pretty cool. Not as hot, but I think it also has to do a lot to do with the material of this one. This is more ceramic. It helps dissipate the heat. I feel like it keeps it cooler. It's like a massive heatsink on top of the rest of the phone, kind of weird. But the Realme GT2 Pro for me was a surprise because I was like expecting it to be a lot warmer. But with Call of Duty at 60 frames, Call of Duty at 90 frames, PUBG at 60 frames, I was consistently, literally the highest I got was 41 after like a 45 to an hour game, consistent. It wouldn't go higher. At the beginning, it was around 40. I was like, okay, 41. I was like, okay, wow, it's getting hotter. But then it never got higher than that. It was enjoyable. And like I said, they're both kind of running on, I wasn't running them at performance mode. I didn't need to run performance mode on them. But I also felt like the GT2 Pro didn't have throttling as much as the Oppo one. Like they ran it more closer to what we've seen from like Xiaomi does usually, just giving you the full potential. They do have a GT 3.0 mode, which is more of optimization and so on. But I found like overall the performance is really nice. I'm happy to see what the 8000 is going to bring us. I'm happy to see MediaTek putting more. I'm just really wanting to get my hands on a 9000.
But this is also, I want to get my hands on both. But
exactly.
this is also where I think it's going to be interesting to see what Qualcomm does for a 7 Gen 1, because MediaTek is not going with the newest cores. They are using A78 and A55. That's a 2-year-old core design. That's what was in the 865. So I'll be curious to see, because I feel like there's an issue with efficiency across the entire SoC on the 8 Gen 1. And if that's an ARM reference design problem with the A710 and A510 cores, if Qualcomm goes to a Snapdragon 7 Gen as the mid-ranger chipset, I would imagine they would try to use the newest core configurations and not go die shrink older core configuration as MediaTek. But does that give MediaTek an advantage if the performance per watt really is more efficient on the A78? Again, this like arms race has huge ramifications, because like what happens in the mid-ranger space and support for Qualcomm 5G radios is kind of a big deal right now. It's going to have a huge impact on like pricing, performance, battery life. The ripple effect could be huge. If you have a Snapdragon 765 and you get a Snapdragon 7 Gen 1, and the 7 Gen 1 has higher performance but also way higher battery draw, that kind of makes 765s more desirable again, and that's a chip we've been rocking since 2020.
It's been a couple of years. The 70, yeah, but it still has has a good footprint. And the weird part, so not that I want to also kind of bring it back, but so Realme released two phones at the event. One was an 8 Gen 1, and the other one is an 888. So Realme decided to go with an 888 over an 870 for not necessarily the lower end, but it's slightly the more price. It started at around 450 euros. Let's just say that was the entry, the sale price on it. I felt like maybe in my mind, I'm thinking if I had any input into when they were designing this, I probably would have gone the way you were saying. Maybe go with an 870 on that one over an 888 and get better performance, battery life, and you still get 5G and all the image processing that you'd probably get in there without having to go as hot of a chipset. But you're right. The fact is we're still missing a big part of the conversation. The 7 series, the 6 series, we haven't heard any of the what we have this year, so we need to wait to see what they are offering. But I'm excited to see what Qualcomm is going to do. If they're going to go, as you said, shrink die, trying to go with more older architecture, but bring into more of a relative new SKU kind of thing, or truly try to improve over the 765 and the 780 that we saw, because there was a 780 last year. There was a small upgrade to what we saw, but I think the 65 was still what is it called?
765 is still one of the most common.
Because it's also one of the more reliable, and I'm assuming there's a cost saving at this point because it would make more sense. Great power to the power to performance ratio, and of course capabilities with the 20-minute of 4K 60 that it could only do, and only 4K 60.
I mean, you just said that and I threw up in my mouth again. I mean, that phone is just garbage. You should just throw it away.
But that's
I don't even know what phone I mean, it's just
it doesn't even
it's
boot
just the way
Android,
it is.
Man. That's what I'm saying.
It does not just
even boot.
The way it is. That's just how it is.
I do want to circle a little bit around around something that I'm apparently very much delinquent on, and I do apologize, and I will be emailing the PR team. It's the GTH Pro. I honestly misunderstood. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'd hold it up right now, but Marie stole it from me.
So I can hold mine.
You're gonna have to be the hand model for this. She saw the size of it, and she had an older Amazfit Blip that she was using. It was getting a little finicky. Like it wasn't syncing. We need to reach out to the folks at Amazfit and just ask if we're doing something funky. And with my wife, it's entirely possible that it's an our side issue, not an Amazfit issue. But she saw the GTH and she got real interested in Arty when she started seeing my arterial health scores, because apparently I have the arteries of a 20-year-old. I'm kind of a peak prime male fitness guy. It's pretty hot stuff, is what I'm saying.
My Arty score today is actually pretty bad. Hold on, let me see if we can get. Oh, come on. We get it to focus, and then I get out of it. So here we go. So we're talking about the Arty score. It is low. But I
you got to step up. Those are rookie numbers. You got to pump those numbers up.
Because it doesn't consider me walking for so many miles as exercise. It is step counting, but it's not exercise. And it likes to try to do, I think, was it 2 to 3 hours of active exercise a week. So I need to. I'll be pushing my video on this hopefully next week. I'm not gonna rush it. I'm already late to the party anyways. But it's a nice little small watch footprint upgrade on what we saw last year with the GTH.
Yeah.
Arty is actually pretty nice once you start using it.
It's interesting.
It's a different way of looking at your data.
I want to see, and I need to read into it. Like a company reached out and said, like, oh, hey, by the way, we're the medical tech company that started doing these PPG sensors. If you'd like to interview our CEO, and like, I don't, but I'd love some white papers on what it is that your optical sensors are really tracking in this score. But so for folks out there, this is a new GTH Pro. This is a TicWatch that's not Wear OS. It's a fitness tracker.
It's running. It's
an RTOS.
RTOS.
And the hook here, it looks a little like an Apple Watch. All of these little sort of pebbly square watches look like the original Asus Zen watch. I'm not going to give Apple all the credit because Asus was first. But the hook here is, instead of an ECG, there is an additional high-resolution PPG sensor that combines a super accurate heart rate monitor with an arterial scan. And it's trying to judge your overall cardiovascular health. And in that, it tries to deliver a score like the age of your heart and the age of your arteries. And if the arterial age is higher than your actual calendar age, then that is information that you should use to try and refine your workouts, refine your diet. It's a really interesting, I mean, it's a subtle twist, but it's a really interesting twist on a different type of fitness and health tracking. And so it's not built on the same kind. Like the TicWatch Pro uses a beat-to-beat sensor that they say can detect defib, kind of like an ECG, but it's just always on.
I've had a few every once in a while. I'll get like one of those.
I've had two.
I've had two, and I look at them and I'm like, but it's just random. Like, like I'd be like in a sitting, resting position, and it just does it. It just one record, noticed, and it says, please check the phone.
One of them, I was in the midst of a very stressful encounter, sitting in my office chair and working out a somewhat challenging problem, and I got a defib. I mean, I got a notification saying like, hey, by the way, just so you know, you're not exercising and something looks weird. So, I mean, that kind of stuff is really cool. This GTH doesn't do that. It's not utilizing the same kind of beat-to-beat sensor, and the ECG isn't like always on. I don't know any watch that has constant.
You have to
ECG.
Actively interact. So Arty is essentially is an interface. So just for reference, one of the other things that differentiates this one from the GTH that we saw last year, or even the Pro, is the fact to run Arty, the actual measurement requires an additional sensor that's sitting on the side under the power button, or the I guess the control button that you could probably see. Hold on, let me. And here, so it's right there, that little area,
that little white square.
And it's basically a secondary sensor separate from what you have at the bottom. So you have your normal sensors, the magnetic charging clip at the bottom. So it requires both being, having it sit and then you measure it with your finger, and that's how you measure your control. It actually, I think it sends a small pulse to be able to kind of sense it. But the overall experience for me has been very nice for the price point, for the size. It's definitely very nice and small and minimalistic as far as the design. The one thing I probably would have said, I wish there was a little bit more watch faces on it. That was about one of my only kind of things I was looking from a customization standpoint.
It's a little sparse. Yeah,
it's like, well, not as many like digital.
Oh, DT is completely correcting me. I don't mean defib. Defib is where you shock someone.
No,
defibrillator. I mean AFib.
Yeah. I heard it, but I didn't want to,
No, correct me. That was a dumb mistake to make. The watch is going to shock you. This watch doesn't have a defibrillator built into it. This watch is garbage.
Juan, you're not feeling well. We're going to shock you.
Thank you. I needed that.
Yeah, actually, speaking of medical style watches and so on, one of the surprising piece of tech that I think not many people are talking about, Huawei has a blood pressure watch that actually has the expansion chamber inside that actually does the compression measurement in a watch.
Ooh, that's kind of crazy.
I was like, I looked at it and they ran it, and it was like, how? So one side of the watch strap has like a chamber. So the longer strap, the part that doesn't really have to clip. Actually, maybe it's a small one, and it sits at the side. And it's like a little air chamber that when you run it presses against your skin and it runs. And then to run it, you have to have your hand on your, like across your chest. So it's not one of those put your hands down. That was surprising.
That's intense.
And that could be coming, they said, later this year. They're trying to get the certification.
Because we've seen some of these sensors play with other things. And again, kind of getting back to this TicWatch, the sensor housing on the back is getting remarkably complex, because it's not even just all of these optical sensors. There's also a skin temperature sensor.
And I think one of the things that's there.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty crazy seeing how much work we're putting into trying to generate this health data from a less than ideal position on the human body.
Yeah.
Like just trying to pack everything into something that wraps around your wrist is a series of compromises on how good this data can be, but we're kind of granularly improving all of this data tracking. From my experiences, I completely agree with you. I feel like the smarter features on the TicWatch are a little lacking. The notification support is not great.
RTOS has its limitations, but
even for RTOS, there are other watches that handle notifications better on an RTOS. The thing I really did like, though, I think this has been the most aggressive watch for auto tracking workouut. So it takes less than a minute. If it detects that I'm really like, you seem to be walking faster than normal, for about 45 seconds, it'll give me a little pop-up saying, hey, is this a workout you want to track? And no other watch I've worn has been that sort of sensitive to an increase in activity. It always bugs me on the TicWatches, on the Wear OS TicWatches. It can take like 5 or 6 minutes. If I don't purposely start a workout, I'm off by about 5 minutes in what my workout tracking should have been.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those. It always bugged me that so that now whenever I'm trying to get it to do a workout, and let's say I'm doing a comparison between the watch or anything like that, I always purposely go in, I click, automatically exercises is first, and for me, treadmill run is like one of the first 3 or 4 options, so it's easy to always find. It's a pleasure. It's nice. It's easy. It just, when I saw you pushing out the video and I was like kicking myself because I was exhausted. I was like, I don't have enough energy to be able to put out a video at MWC, rushing it. Because I could have sat down and done like a on the road kind of thing, but I'll hopefully be pushing out the video for that.
Now, did you get any good like B-roll of the watch at MWC? Because that is like the best place to shoot.
I wish
smartwatch and fitness tracker B-roll, because you'd be like, for this whole week at MWC, I was averaging 20,000 steps a day. This is what peak performance looks like. Is me at a trade show.
The surprising part I also felt like was my TicWatch 3 Pro somehow switched over to kilometers for me when I was in Europe. Like, it knew I was in Europe and I wanted to I should be like, I was like, okay, so you're here. So my numbers when in Rome, kilometer is what you do. I think sadly I didn't, and weird enough, I forgot to charge my watches at some point because the whole setup was not the same, and I did end up killing the battery on the 3 Pro. This one actually did have a little bit better performance. I guess I was a little bit more mindful of charging this one, but it also does last a little bit longer because of the power requirements. So unfortunately, no. I got Joby sent me a nice package of camera equipment, accessories, not a camera. Sorry, I said camera, I meant accessories. They sent me the Joby Mic Pro. They sent me a couple of their sliders, which I was really happy to check out. There is the spin and the slide, and the slide was actually a very interesting look. It does like a pan shot, almost like a slide option, but it's an X-axis motorized option where it just kind of twists across itself.
Almost kind of like it hooks it for you.
But it does that's really nice. So I was testing that out. I did that on my last day before we left. The microphones, they actually, surprisingly, the Wave actually does perform. It doesn't work. It performs well. It's not that bad on the show floor. Although I will say where I was standing wasn't exactly in the middle of the show floor where everybody was crossing me with Bluetooth signals and Wi-Fi and all of that. But at the Xiaomi booth, I decided to do a little bit of an A-roll clip there just to test it out for the review video for the Wave. It was actually nice. I really like the setup that they have. Easy pairing, audio interface is nice. I had wished it worked as an audio interface, like I can connect it over USB-C. That wasn't there, but hooking it up to my my E10, the ZV-E10, was actually very nice, very simple. It's running gun, very light.
And it handled the show floor, like it handled.
Yeah, it actually was pretty. Like I said, I was on the show floor at the Xiaomi booth. And so you're imagining a lot of things going on. Didn't have any issues with that. The Wave Pro was useless down there. I did an audio clip there, but it's useless to try to use a shotgun microphone of that size on a handheld camera where you want to step away from it. If you're vlogging, perfectly fine, and you just have to project very loud. But the reality is you need a wireless solution. I feel like the Wave did much better. I was at one point trying to see if I could work it with you. Did yours only come with only one clip? For the accessories kit, did it have 2 clips for the transmitters, or did it only have 1? Because for me, it only had one clip.
Mine had, you know what? I don't remember. I think it might have only had 1 clip and 1 magnet.
Yes, so it had different. So what I'm trying to say is, it has accessories, which is a little bit different than what you see with some of the other audio solutions. So to actually mount it, you can mount it in so many different ways. So they had like a plastic cold shoe, they had a clip, they had a magnet, they had different things. And they're all included in there, the chargers, the wires, all of that stuff. And it's a nice little package itself. So I definitely loved that part. But the spin and the swing were my favorite pieces of tech, because I do is just set that up, and it worked. And they're intended to be used with smartphones, by the way. This is not intended to be for DSLRs. So I hooked up my my FX3 Pro, and I was doing so many like time lapses and hyperlapses. People were looking at me, it's like, what is he doing? Why is his camera in the middle of the floor, and why is he shooting at people, not at products? I just wanted the beautiful B-roll. So yeah. So
yeah, right. You're like, haha, you're in my video now. Whee!
But that, yeah. So, the overall experience, I think, at the end of the day, I will say this: I was very happy and very blessed to be able to be part of the show, hanging out with a whole bunch of people. And again, honestly, cannot say this enough. Would have been even more awesome if you were able to be there with me.
Yeah,
because I feel like
wanted
that
to make it out there.
to me, I feel like I want to shoot to a certain point where we go there as a team, not necessarily only to cover everything together, but like as a team and coordinate, because we would be able to kind of nail it and it sounded weird here, get the job done so much more efficiently and on time. And again, just I can't wait for that to happen, and hopefully in the near future we'll be able to see some of that happening.
For sure.
Yeah. So a lot of good things, and the announcements that we heard are obviously going to start shaping our conversations, hopefully in the near future. Realme is definitely going up. Xiaomi is also kind of moving up as well. So obviously, we saw with the Pocos, and of course the Redmis are in there. The Redmi K series, actually, they were starting to talk about that last week.
Yeah,
that's a little bit more on their performance side on the Redmis.
So many phones.
So many.
So many phones.
And as soon as the show's over, you and I need to coordinate on how to be able to get this little sucker in your hands.
Yeah,
I know
for
you
sure.
said so many phones, but I'd love to get something in here because I'll be very frank, it's not going to stay with me for very too much longer.
I feel the S22s
okay
are gonna bounce right off my channel, and it's frustrating because like if you're in North America, it's not like you've got a ton of competition in that premium phone space. But I'm getting the feeling, unless someone literally says to me, "Boy, howdy, do I use Dex all the time?" And I only want to spend around $800 MSRP, I'm not going to have much positive to say. The Pixel 6 is still crushing in its price tier, which is undercutting the S22. If you're international, if you're not in the United States, I shouldn't keep saying if you're international, as if the United States is the center of the universe. If you're not in the United States,
you're
you've
Pitbull,
got
you're Mr.
lots
Worldwide.
of options.
That's what he's talking
Mr.
about.
Worldwide.
That's every time he said if you're international, in my mind I'm hearing Mr. Worldwide, Mr. 305 right here.
Sure,
Exactly.
because I'm not. I'm in California, but I still think I'm Mr. 505.
I was going to say Mr. 818 right there. Sorry.
What?
I don't know why
So
I put it
the S22 is one I definitely want to play with, but man, does that not look like any kind of keeper phone for an enthusiast? And it doesn't even feel like that great of an option to average consumers who will probably be happier with an A series.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's one of those, if you are seriously going in looking at it at an S22, it's that phone that you look at and that you realize that if you pay a little more, you can get something so much better. Because
or if you pay a little less, you'll get something better,
even better. Yeah, no. It's a weird, like, it's like the S21 FE coming out at the end of 2022, at the beginning of 2022. It's a weird spot to be in. It is a little more, about $100 more than the FE, but it's still, I feel like you said, A series could definitely be maybe even performed, or even last year's S21. I still think S21 Ultra or S21 owners should not even in any way, shape, or form consider looking at the series.
I still think S20 owners should probably just sit tight.
For the S20 and the S20 Plus, yes,
is
I'm with
still
you
a
on those.
better phone than the S22. Not for the Ultra. The Ultra is a different
the
conversation.
Ultra, the Ultra is a
and that's
different
exciting for Note owners, absolutely. But if we're talking S20 to S22, I'd say sit tight. Just keep that phone because it is every spec except for the peak high-end horsepower of the SoC. The S20 is a better device.
Yeah, no, and I feel like this, and I will leave this. So one little bit of surprise that I had while I was on my trip with the S22 Ultra. Now for the little bit of references, I'm using the T-Mobile edition of it. I decided to go with the T-Mobile variant. I typically go unlocked because that's usually what I do. But the T-Mobile they made it so tempting with an extra $200 off.
Sure.
100 extra on the credit, but $100 off on the price, which made it more compelling for me and saves me money in the long run. As I'm going on my broke tour, as I like to call it. Seriously, between Samsung and the wallet hurts. T-Mobile's variant gave me some surprises, which I kind of mentioned to you last time. I couldn't set up the phone without a SIM card. You could not get into anything in the setup if there was no active SIM card with the carrier that you bought it. That was the first step. Second step that was really very weird. As I'm setting it up, there was an option of obviously disabling data collection and sharing that content. That's been something with T-Mobile phones for some time. You have control over that, so you can disable and not share data, as opposed to where it used to be auto turned on. Disable those, everything worked the same. Everything, we go through this. And as we get to the final setup process where you start getting those recommended apps, do you want to install these extras and whatever.
Sure.
T-Mobile's approach is a little bit different this year. They're more aggressive in pushing their content onto the device, as opposed to allowing me to actually make decisions about it. So I didn't get that selection to be able to customize. And they have an app selector app that's been installed by T-Mobile, by their auto-generated auto configuration management app. And it installs separate apps on its own without asking me for permission. And
That's
it tells me
gross.
about it. That was very weird. And I tweeted at T-Mobile, and of course, T-Mobile's first answer was, "Please hit us up in the DMs. Let's talk privately over this." And I'm like, "No, it's weird." So I pushed out the tweet. Let me show you, because I don't have the screenshots on me right now. I want to show you guys the. It bugged me because, okay, so at the original process when I set up the phone, I saw them coming up. I disabled them. You are able to uninstall these apps.
Right.
So I go into the system. I uninstalled the app selector. I froze the T-Mobile app because they allow us to do that. I couldn't uninstall that one. So I thought I had my whole T-Mobile-fied the phone, which I'm not trying to. It's not looking against T-Mobile, but it's more about. I'm used to a more stock experience, unlocked model, not stock. Oh man, so many cool people. Okay, here it is. So this is the tweet, and there was I had a picture. I was scrolling through my timeline. There's going to be more stuff coming up too. So here, this one. So the thing that came up to me was I got this notification on my phone. T-Mobile has installed, didn't ask me, it says has installed recommended applications on your device. These apps add to your mobile experience or are recommended for better network performance service. So you'd assume better like network experiences and stuff like that to
Right.
help us.
And you got Candy Crush.
So first installation was Amazon Shopping. Second installation was Facebook, because again, that's the experience I like to play with. Then the next day I get T-Mobile Play. Browse, stream the latest content on your favorite applications, and then it reinstalled the app selector, which was the default. This is the app manager that installs all of these things onto my phone.
So
Didn't
literally
ask me
nothing to do with management, network,
with the message that comes
performance.
up at the beginning, which
And a bunch of apps that are also going to help tank your battery life.
because
And
we all need to live. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have Amazon already installed. That wasn't the issue for me. It was more about my irk with it was you didn't ask
no,
me.
that's less than good.
Yeah. And not only did you not ask me, I uninstalled them when I installed these apps the first time you did them to me in the setup process. I even froze the T-Mobile applications because I just don't want any of them, right?
Yeah.
And you not only revived the app, so they reinstalled the app selector that I removed, but you gave it permission to install things in the background for me that I can't. So now, as soon as I'm done later today, when I'm able to sit down, I'm actually going to go in there and basically just literally kill the installation app. It's an MCM or MCN. I forgot the name of the actual application itself. I just need to get that manually disabled over ADB, and I think that will stop it. But average people that are getting a T-Mobile phone. Yeah, like this is active bloat installation. Like when T-Mobile decides they want to install a new app in there, they just install it. What's the point?
And again, because there's an apathy and we don't really instruct or inform people, and they're just going to be like, okay, I guess. I mean, I still need to have Facebook to talk to my grandma, I suppose. And
yeah, but I mean,
you're not going to get
Facebook
any resistance to it.
they are not by in any way, shape, or mean applications that will, what's it called, to add to your mobile experience or are recommended for better network service. Nothing to do with
Nothing about that. Yeah.
Nothing, and that bothered me a lot. While I was on my trip, because I wake up and I mean, it tells you, at least it does tell you that it's installing them. It's not like it's hiding them. But I uninstalled the app selector. I installed the other T-Mobile Play, because I don't want any of those apps, and it reinstalled them. Like you can't get rid of them even if you wanted to. So short answer.
Yeah, that's pretty scummy.
That alone is seriously making me want to return my S22 Ultra and get an unlocked model just for the sake of that.
I mean,
because
are you still? I mean, is that still an option? Can you?
I didn't trade in my S21 Ultra yet. I need to return that one for this. I'm not gonna lie. That my impressions right now for the week and a half or so that I've had the S22 Ultra, it's not much better than the S21 Ultra. For me, like on a day-to-day usage, the extra storage that I got on it is about the only main benefit that I appreciated more.
Gotcha.
Because I went for the 512 because of the deal that they were doing. That was what was bothering me with the S21 Ultra the most. Charging speed isn't really that much different realistically. We all know that they're not even running at 45.
No.
And the S Pen, I mean, I'm a fan, but seriously, not a feature that I use all the time. I rarely
Gotcha.
ever reach for the S Pen. So it's a little bit of a debate, but the T-Mobile variant is what's bugging me now. It's not even Samsung. It's the fact that T-Mobile's trying to play that type of game.
Well, and it's been concerning also seeing, I mean, Michael Pepper brings this up too. Like, even when you get an unlocked phone, it's almost like Samsung is working with carriers in the United States so that when you put the SIM in, it kind of provisions the phone in a way to be more like a T-Mobile branded phone
Google's doing the same
experience.
thing. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Google did the exact when I plugged in my AT&T SIM to my Pixel 6 Pro, it tried to install the
Starts
AT&T
doing
Magic app.
like, yeah, hey, you
Yeah,
want
yeah,
all this other stuff, and you're like, I do not.
yeah.
That's why I went out of my way to not get all this stuff.
But with that being said, at least for me, what I looked at that is that okay, so if it does try to install them and you just uninstall them, they don't come back. This was the buggy part about this. This is why I haven't mentioned the fact that there was additional apps on my device. I don't everybody knows you get bloatware. If you get a
Right.
version that's whatever carrier, you're going to get that carrier's bloatware. And uninstalling them and disabling the apps that I didn't need were for me the limit, the thing as far as I thought I needed to do initially. But walking around and you get a notification and it did it 2 days in a row, and I was like, seriously. Like the two little sets of apps were installed on over 2 separate days.
Hey, don't worry, we're using up data and we're using up your battery
International
life.
data.
And
I wasn't home.
Yeah.
This is running on at like much different like levels of things. So, but anyways, yeah.
I feel like that probably needs its own video on its own, TK.
I feel like I need to start. Yeah. But I want to start reaching out to some of the other. People that may have picked up an AT&T model, right? Or may have picked up like a Verizon. Are you getting the same experience with auto installing?
Let me tell you, as a cheapskate who recently switched from Google Fi to Mint, boy howdy, do they not care about any kind of user experience application install on Mint. It's you manually put in your own APN settings. They don't even have a user setup.
There's no auto. I mean, which don't get me wrong. To a certain point,
I'm real happy. they just like, oh, it's your phone, I guess.
No, I'm with you. It's one of those things I wished, but I've been away from it for so long that I have not picked up a device that is locked. But it
seems like it's gotten worse.
It got worse, and that $200 now is starting to bite me in the butt, kind of a thing. Like I should have just paid the extra $200 and stuck to what I usually like to get. But it's okay. You know what? I have so many more options going on. Like I said, I'm seriously considering potentially just maybe switching back to maybe like as a main device, because even though these are not designed for our market, they still perform quite well. I don't get 5G, but the 4G LTE is crazy fast. It actually supports really good 4G LTE in the US. The reality, I mean, the S Pen is nice, but I didn't want a Note. I wanted an S. And they gave me a Note and called it an S, and that's supposed to be okay. I'm like, no, you gave me a Note.
Oh, but bigger YouTubers are saying now it's like the best of both worlds. You get the S and the Note in one.
Don't they say those words every single time a Note comes out, saying that this is the best of everything if you really want to be super productive? Like the S series, just like what? You can barely float.
Well, for me, it was also like there was all of that like back padding. Like, well, but if you don't need the S Pen, you get the better screen and you get more battery, and that's why the S is the better for average people than the Note. And now it's but now you can have both the Note features and the S in one. Isn't that what you want? And you're like, yeah. At some point, you do actually need to be consistent in what you're praising, because literally every single move that Samsung makes can't always be the correct move.
Exactly.
Like at some point, you actually have to say, like, "Hey, this actually takes you in a different direction, and maybe that's not going to be what you want." Because I remember all of the techies that were angry about the price of the V60 because they could have made the phone cheaper if they didn't force you to buy a digitizer if you weren't going to use it with a stylus. They should have made a phone that had a digitizer and a phone that didn't have a digitizer so that you could spend less. But now, if you want the best camera sensor, the best performance, the best battery life, you have to buy an S Pen enabled device. And if you're not going to use that S Pen, you have been forced to buy things that you don't really need. They could have made the phone cheaper by making a version without an S Pen. That's what a Galaxy S is.
Yep.
And so again, I'm a little not impressed with some of the tone of these other reviewers that are just acting like, no, but this is great. If you don't need it, you can get an S22 Plus. And you're like, yeah, but that's garbage. I don't want an S22 Plus.
But this is the
I
problem.
want an Ultra.
An S22 Plus is not the S22 Plus to an S22 Ultra. It's the S22 Ultra, S22 Plus for the S21 Ultra from last year, because the S22 Ultra is really the Note. This is the roadmap that this is so muddied now, and we don't know what they're going to do later on. I mean, does that mean next year the S23 is going to be an actual S series, an actual X series? Are we going to do alternating years?
I don't know.
Which don't get me wrong, it makes sense for an upgrade cycle. But you really need to differentiate the name. You can't call two different styles of devices that you've gone for years designing and building and engraving the S series and Note series being separate lines, and then suddenly just combine them and make it sound like you're
No,
rule
TK.
breaker and all of that good
Already
stuff.
now you're not making as much money on YouTube.
Yeah, I know actually.
What you needed to say was, Samsung blew me away again. Who would have thought? You know what? I didn't have the highest of expectations for the Galaxy S series this year, but through pure meritocracy, not through any influence of my YouTube metrics or the $10 billion a year that Samsung spends on marketing, just through the practical day-to-day usage of the most basic level average consumer idea of owning a smartphone, they nailed it. I mean, they are the de facto choice in Android land, and it doesn't matter that the average selling price of Samsung phones is only about $270, which means no one's buying Galaxy S or Galaxy Z. They're mostly buying Galaxy A and I guess whatever cheaper phones that Samsung makes. But as a YouTuber, boy, let me tell you, it just completely took me by surprise. I need to make the most wacky face shocked thumbnail for this video to properly express the emotional high of only saying that Samsung makes the perfect right decision every time. Just nailed it. It's awesome. Until I review an iPhone, and then I'll tell you why the iPhone is better.
Exactly, because then that's the standard. That's the standardized things. One is iPhone, Samsung is two, and everything else is trash.
Everything else is garbage.
Exactly.
Trash.
But
on that note,
since we're talking about taking things out the door, it's been an interesting, very, very crazy week. I am, although I didn't actually change or try to live by by Barcelona's time zone and was really sleep deprived. Surprisingly, I'm still getting hit with a little bit of that whole mental fogginess a little bit. Running on a cup of coffee this morning just to kind of compose things to get realistic. But the reality is this: look, it was an exciting show. I'm glad that it happened, and I'm glad that it was open. And that I was able to attend it by myself as my own, and I was able to work through a company to do so, which is the surprising part for me. Got a chance to meet a lot of good people. Heard a lot also conversations about people being, tech being stolen, people being, It's a thing that you don't talk about a lot, but Barcelona is known for it around the Mobile World Congress, is because there's so much influx of international tech community people coming in. I know at least of two people that I know that unfortunately got either robbed or things of them got taken away. So if you are able to go, or if you do attend Barcelona for MWC in any time, be very, very vigilant about your tech. Make sure that you are aware where you are and what you're doing. Again, by no means am I saying this is a reflection of the community of everybody that's in Barcelona.
How dare you?
Because I want to be clear,
It's
because
people get opportunist about
yeah,
influxes of travel, and this is one of those where because this is like a major thing that Barcelona is known for. A lot of people with a lot of expensive stuff are going to be showing up in your city, and unfortunately, there's some really crappy individuals out there that like to
yeah,
take advantage of those
very, yeah.
situations.
And so again, luckily came back and I tested again last night, made sure everything was good. I'm still running negative.
Nice.
And I'm happy to see that the requirements for travel is also loosening a little bit. I didn't have to have a test to go into Barcelona. It was purely just a vaccination requirement. As long as I met them, I was good. Coming back to the US, I didn't have to do a PCR. I did an antigen test. I was surprised. It was actually much easier, cheaper. Yeah. But I did my due diligence, of course, distancing, sanitizing, all of the good stuff. And anytime there was a no mask kind of grouping with anybody, we always tried to make it outside, not trying to make it into any kind of closed environment. So yeah, again, happy, looking forward to and see how things go kind of later on. Tomorrow's show for me is going to be more of a recap of my experience at MWC. So that's going to be my Android Bay episode for Saturday morning. Going to go kind of showcase also a lot of the reels that I pushed out. I didn't do a lot of videos at the show because I had my hardware before.
But again, I think like the strategy of doing like short little snippety kinds of videos is working really well.
Yeah, but I'm also kind of keeping them. I didn't do what I did for CES, which I was posting them to my YouTube side. It doesn't help my channel. It's weird. Mm-hmm. Shorts are actually we're impacting my view count negatively, and impacting the also not to say that I was worried about too much monetization, but you don't make money on YouTube off of shorts. So the view drop with average views dropping, and then of course it changes the whole metric. So I've kept. From now on, Instagram is where my reels will live. I'll share them to Twitter, and I'll just keep my recap, and I'll showcase them in my weekly thing. It's much easier for me to handle, so it'll be hopefully a better thing. But what's coming up for you? Did anything exciting coming up for you before we close the roundup?
Oh man, so this was like almost a video every day. I'm actually taking today off. So Poco X4, Poco M4 editorial, TicWatch. On the Patreon, there is the Xiaomi Mi 11 Ultra 1-year camera review. So looking back at the Mi 11 Ultra and just what's improved and where I still feel like there needs to be some polish on a very, very premium camera phone. That's on the Patreon tonight. If you're on the Patreon, patreon.com/somegadgetguy, we're going to do a movie night. So if you're on the replay crew and you're catching this later, you probably already missed it. But right now, the vote is leaning towards RoboCop. Like we're just going to get together and watch a bunch of old cheesy movies, and the first RoboCop seems to be taking the lead in the vote. But then also on the Patreon, I haven't done a budget phone camera deep dive in a while. And now phones not only sub 400, but also sub 300 are starting to come with these really crazy larger camera sensors. They're really megapixel dense. So I think this afternoon I'm going to put up a poll on the Patreon to see which one I should try to cover. I've got the TCL, I've got the Infinix, I've got Redmis and Pocos.
Did you get the XE? Did you get your hands on the TCL?
No. I still have to wrap up the video on the 30V. So okay. I wasn't really going to tag anyone at TCL until like, I don't need another one of your phones while I'm still working
on
covering the phone that you sent me. Yeah. I want to try it because again, that not having Verizon radio support drops you from like a $300 price tag to a $200 price tag, which is really exciting. But I also feel it's going to be similar enough that I can kind of generally talk about what it's like to use that kind of a TCL 30. But anyway, on that Patreon, look out for the poll because I'd love to get your feedback. If we're going to talk about a 20 to 30 minute camera deep dive on a phone that costs under $300, which one should I start with? Which one should we focus on? And I think there are some really good pros and cons across the entire spectrum of these lower cost phones. But yeah, some really exciting stuff. I'm gonna work with you on getting hands-on with the Galaxy S22.
Absolutely.
Barry
Yep.
Johnson has my iQOO, and he just put out his first video on the iQOO 9 Pro.
Kick ass,
And
kick
so
ass, man. Nice.
his video style is really chill. I really like what he's doing with his Engineer Reacts videos. Just like a ton of really good stuff has gone up over this last week, and it looks like the momentum is going to carry through for next week too.
And that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping to get back into my groove, my not groove, but essentially in my normal workflow.
It's hard getting back into that flow, man. You're gonna have to give yourself a couple days.
I was really trying to put something out today, and honestly, I don't think I have the energy for it. I don't even think I can make a cohesive video, which I don't want to.
And if you try to rush it, it's going to take even longer. Like if you
It
take
will.
a couple days and you chill out and you just kind of rest back up, you're going to come back fresh. If you try and hit this like on Sunday, like let me put a video together, it's going to be hot garbage, and you're going to hate it.
As much energy as I have, I think it'll be basically focused on what I have for tomorrow morning for the Android Bay, and by Monday we'll be back on normal delivery schedule videos and so on. So. Looking forward to checking out the stuff on your side. If you guys are also interested, we are going to be pushing out an audio version of our podcast that comes out about a day or so after our show is live. And it's essentially, for the most part, a raw version of what our audio is. It's just, you get every single, the good, the bad, the amazing part of the audio on here. So, other than that, make sure to catch up on Monday with the SCGQA on Juan's show over on his channel. And of course, we'll see you guys another episode next week. An amazing episode. We'll have obviously way more things to talk about on the best of our week next Thursday night. We'll be back to the normal schedule. I'm going to stop disrupting the schedule. I feel like I've been doing this too much the last few weeks. Every time I was like, hey, Juan, do you mind if we do it on Friday morning as opposed to no.
I get it though.
I
It's
know.
what needs to happen. It's fine.
I got home at like 10:30 last night. So if we did do it yesterday, the flight landed at 8:35, 8:40. We were delayed a little bit out of Newark. The same flight that messed me up on the way out.
Mm-hmm.
This was the reverse part of it. Was a little bit delayed because of short staffing over there, but it at least didn't get canceled. So at least that part was okay.
I'm glad you're back on the continent and back on the correct coast.
I am happy that I'm back in my own bed. Let's say that. Take care, everybody. Thanks, everybody kicking it with us. Jimmy, Greg, Michael, George.
This was a great chat.
Always, it was a great chat. We'll see you guys in the next week.
Take care.